This is Senior Pastor Jamaal Bernard from the Christian Culture Center, and I want to welcome you to today's message. Wherever you're listening from, at home, in the car, or on the move, I believe this message is going to challenge, inspire, and help you grow. Now let's get into today's message. I'm excited about this word because I want to leave you to land somewhere. And so I had a whole thing set up with a picture and to talk about my journey and my weight loss. Thank you. Because somebody hit me up on Instagram and said, PJ, you started telling us, but you never finished the story. So one day I'll finish the story because it's a lot. But there's a couple key elements, because if you look at this picture, if I can have that picture up there, I was big. And you don't know how much weight you gain until you lose it and look back at the pictures of where you were. And I told my wife, I said, why y'all have me out here looking like a big pumpkin? And this is posted. I'm like, so it went, it's out there. You can take it down because this is embarrassing. No, take it down. But real quick, because I want to get you somewhere and talk about it, my message. Because we're talking about wisdom, right? And it's the year of wisdom. And I said, talking to a couple of individuals, looking at the news and seeing what's going on, I said, wow, how much do we need wisdom now more than ever? I've been praying for all of our individuals who are in politics, individuals who are working in an arena where they're even administrators, legal, individuals that are Christians that are out there doing things in this political arena. And I'm like, Lord, they need wisdom even more now. Right? And I said, I think, we as a church, we need wisdom more now, how we're going to navigate this. And why am I saying this? Because when it came to weight loss, I was out on a workout journey. I go to the gym. I've been going to the gym, and I never saw results, right? And often we can do some things because we collected some information, and we try to implement it. But there's a process that we got to go through in order to land at this place where we start receiving this thing called wisdom, because wisdom is what brings change. Because what happens is you get wisdom, you ask for wisdom, you got knowledge, understanding, and then what happens is when you have landed where you can apply, you have gained some wisdom. And I say that, but that's not fully true, because actually is when you can teach what you have applied is when you become wise. Applying it lets you go through the process of learning okay, that was a little too much. Okay, I need to balance this out a little more. Okay, this is, I've landed this, but this is what works for me. So I took some counsel from somebody else, but it doesn't work necessarily for me. And so I went down the journey of finding out what worked for Jamaal Bernard. And part of this journey was a very frustrating journey. It was a very emotional journey. It was a mental journey, but I landed at a place where what I found out works for me. And I want to share it with you, but I don't have time to share it with you because we got the Super Bowl. I got some wings I got to throw on. But a part of my journey was really going through the process where I had to say, okay, who am I? Because I knew that the changes I was going to make was going to have a direct impact on how I identified myself as Jamaal Bernard. I love the fact that I was the big man in the room. I love the fact that I can go to a bench and lift 405 pounds for a couple of times. That people knew that, and I was loving that fact. That was something I identified with. Squatting 500 pounds. It was like, yes, I'm out there. We out in the streets, I used to pray before I worked out. I said, Lord, have mercy on these weights because I won't. So I was out there, and I said, okay, I knew that this change was going to have a direct impact on my journey. And a part of the journey was I went to the doctor. Actually, literally, I went to every doctor that was out there, a heart doctor, a cardiologist, my regular physician. I even went to a dermatologist. I have eczema. I'm I'm trying to figure out, because a part of this stuff is okay, what's happening inside that's being expressed on the outside? Right, so I went. I got a colonoscopy. As a man, I got the 45 and over test. And if I wasn't a pastor, I would have asked, was a drink coming with this test? Some of y'all like, what he's talking about? Google it, you'll see. I went through all of that, and then I went on a path, and I started acquiring information started figuring out what is going on. And it's like when you start a business, if you find a business that is similar to what you want to do, you find out what you're doing and what's working. So you can see if that's something you can add on to it, right? So this is the same way. And so I started intermittent fasting. And I didn't do it strict, but I started intermittent fasting. I cut out, initially I cut out soda, juice, and drink water for 3 months. And that was a struggle, because certain foods, a nice glass of soda goes well with. Come on, saints, right, man? Right, nice, certain foods, right? If you go and, go to this, the Cucho Frito spot, the Spanish spot, and you get yourself some chicharrón and, some arroz con gandules and, the pernil, with the caro and right? And so all of that, and then you got and it's not just a regular Pepsi, you got to have the Good-O. Some of y'all what's Good-O? Who knows Good-O, right? The Cola champagne with the black, red, and white with the yellow writing, right? You had to have one of those. Fresh, nice, don't add ice because you don't want to, dilute it. So you got to make sure it's cold in the refrigerator and you're just munching. But it's unhealthy. But yeah, I still, indulge. I still get it. My wife's Puerto Rican, so it's sacrilegious if I don't. Changed my diet, went through the process, started gaining, intermittent fasting. People say, well, how many times you fast? Once a week, I fast 24 hours. Once a month, I try to do 36 hours of fasting because what happens is when you start fasting, I know I'm speaking fast because I got to go fast, right? Once you start fasting, if you get your body into autophagy, it starts eating at the bad cells and reproducing new cells and stuff like that. And then I went down a rabbit hole of understanding saunas and infrared saunas and regular hot saunas and then the ice cold plunge, and to the point where I said, okay, I'm going to start with just taking my face and sticking it in a bowl of ice. They said for 30 seconds in the morning when you first wake up, right? So I go in there, I'm like, all right, Cameron, you got to time me. So I put my face in the water and how fast is that? She said, Daddy, it's only 3 seconds, but Lord have mercy. I thought I was going to drown. And I landed, and one of the things I acquired was the information and the knowledge to end up being able to go into this journey and really lose this weight. And now I'm at a place where I'm able to start sharing it because I gained enough wisdom on how it affects me. And I tell everybody, I said, no matter what you do, the biggest thing you need to do is journal. Journal is so significant. Why? Thank you. So as you journal, when you're journaling, what happens is that you start understanding, okay, because I got to a point where every day I was watching exactly what I ate and try to figure out what effect it had on my body. So then I know that what I needed to eliminate to get me to a specific result. Right? So at a base understanding, if you want to lose weight, you got to burn more than the calories you take in. Right? But that's not enough. Because if you take in 1,000 calories and you eat 900 calories, you're going to have a slow process of losing weight. So the larger the gap, the faster you lose weight, right? So there's some information you can use between calorie counting and whatnot and stuff like that. But then as you start fasting, you go from they said females roughly about 14, 15 hour fast. Men, 16 to 18 hours maximum, for the most is 20 hours fasting and stuff like that. Don't break your fast with a carb and don't end your fast with a carb, right? So you're in between if you want to do it, because I carb cycled. Carb cycling is Monday I'll have some carbs, Tuesday I'll have low carbs, and then by Wednesday I'm having no carbs, right? I know, I'm going fast, right? So because everybody's like, please finish, so I'm finishing. So then this is my journey. Then I start working out. I started studying and doing a study. I said, okay, which burns more calories? Is it weightlifting? Is it cardio? Is it weightlifting and cardio combined? And a lot of studies say that weightlifting actually burns more calories than cardio does. Right? And then I said, okay, if I do want to do cardio because I want to make sure I have good heart health, cardio wasn't designed for me to lose weight. It was more so to get in condition. So I started doing this thing called HIIT cardio, high intensity, right? So you run for 30 seconds and you walk for 30 seconds. You run for a minute, then you walk for a minute. You run for 2 minutes, you walk for 2 minutes, right? So a lot of individuals say, yes, Pastor, I know that. But one of the things I've learned is that a lot of us know what to do, but we don't implement it. And then I went down the rabbit hole of different salts, and I landed at cultic salt because now I'm working out, I'm losing minerals and stuff like that. I got to replenish my minerals. And I said, okay, I need some magnesium, I need some potassium, I need some calcium, I need some zinc, right? So I'm going through the process of trying to figure out because our food in America does not provide enough nutrients for us to survive, right? So now you got to supplement it. But then I had to go find out, okay, which one dissolves better in water. So you do the dissolving test on all the different pills because some pills say one thing and they give you another thing. And so you got to go through the process of all the different rabbit holes. And that's why I said I found out what worked for me. Because there are some rabbit holes you can go down, some conspiracy theories that you can go down that gets you to a place where you just start hating certain things about America. But then I got wise. And how many of you are out here trying to figure things out, but you haven't got to a place where you become wise? I think being wise, the whole idea of being wise is not because you want to be arrogant and stuff like that, because when you land at a place where you can teach the very thing that you have learned, you come to a place where now you implement so many different things. I said that's the thing, the difference between a millionaire and a person who got $1 million from just lottery. This person who received $1 million from lottery, once they lose all that money, they'll go right back to the place where they were. But a person who becomes a millionaire practices all the disciplines and all the things that is necessary for me to achieve this a millionaire status. I will always be considered a millionaire because I know how to get to it. And that's where you are looked at as being wise. And I looked and I came across this text and I'm reading in the Bible because I'm looking at our saints and I'm saying, why don't we have more wise saints out there? And the reason why I asked this question, because I'm coming to this text in James, and James is considered the brother of Jesus, and James, I know for those scholars, was not necessarily really his name, but because of the translations and moving from the different languages, you landed at James. I got to say that because you got super saints out there. In James chapter 1, and James is encouraging the church, and he's looking at the condition of the church. The churches in Rome, and things are going on. They're being persecuted from both the Romans, well, they weren't even Roman Catholic, but the Roman, you got the persecution from the Jews, and you got persecution from even within, because you have the wealthy getting mad at the poor, and then you got these individuals arguing with this individual. And what James is saying, look, get your stuff together. He said, there's a whole bunch of nonsense. There's a lot going on in the church. He said, get yourself together. There's going to be some issues. And he takes them through the process, but then he starts out by this. He says, look, let me tell you something. James chapter 1, verse 5 and 6, and this is the Amplified Bible. He says, if any one of you lacks wisdom to guide him through a decision or circumstance, he is to ask our benevolent, say benevolent. He is to ask our benevolent God, who gives everyone generously and without rebuke or blame. And what he says here, he says, look, if you need wisdom, if you need to make some decisions because there's a circumstance or a situation going on, he said, go to God. Often we go to the wrong individual and we find ourselves down the wrong path, and then we get mad at God. He said, go to God. He said, ask. He said, not just this benevolent God, and benevolence is really the understanding of what good is, because when you look up good in dictionary, it's very difficult to understand what good is because it kind of uses the same word to define itself, which you shouldn't be doing. So benevolence, and benevolent means always in a disposition to do good. So God is waiting in a disposition to give you the very thing that you're asking for when it comes to wisdom. He says, look, and not only will he give it to you, but he's going to give it generously. He's going to be like, that's where Oprah gets the idea from. Look under your seat. No, I'm just joking. Don't do it right now. And what happens? You get some wisdom. When you went in the balcony, you get some wisdom. This is the God we serve. This is what he's saying. You want more wisdom? Here's more wisdom. And I'm not going to judge you on where you are as an individual. I'm not going to rebuke you. I'm not going to blame you for where you are. But the fact that you're coming to me asking for wisdom shows that you're ready to come up out of your circumstance, come out of your situation. And all you got to do is just ask. And so I took this text. I said, whoa, Lord, why? Then we should have more wise individuals. He said, I give it to everyone generously and without rebuke or blame, and it will be given to him. But he must ask for wisdom in faith, without doubting God's willingness to help. For the one who doubts is like a billowing surge of the sea that is blown about and tossed by the wind. See, God gives wisdom in several ways, and we're going to get to it because the reason I'm going to get to this is because I believe that he has given us a command to live a certain way in this world, especially today. So number one, he gives wisdom through his word. Say through his word. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, God gives wisdom through his word. Turn to another neighbor and say, another neighbor, read the word. You'll get wisdom. Turn to the other neighbor and say, neighbor, I'm not saying it's you, but you got to read it more than on a Sunday. So number one, through his word. The Bible is filled with wisdom for life. Relationships, decisions, and faith can be found in the Bible. In Psalms chapter 119, verse 105, it says, your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light to my path. See, reading books like Proverbs, James, helps us develop godly wisdom. So number one, through his word. And I'm rushing because I want to land somewhere. Number two, through prayer and the Holy Spirit. Number two, through prayer and Holy Spirit. See, I love because James 1 verse 5 says, we should ask God for wisdom and he will give it generously. The Holy Spirit guides believers in truth and understanding. Number three, I'm going too fast? Yes? Number one, through his word. Number two, through prayer and the Holy Spirit. John chapter 16 verse 13 says, when the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truths. So through his word, through prayer and the Holy Spirit. Why is this so key? Because sometimes we find ourselves getting frustrated with where we are. And God said, no, come to me. I got answers for you. All I need you to do is just come to me. I got answers. Number three, through experiences and trials. God often allows us to go through challenges to teach us wisdom. He doesn't send the challenge to you, but he'll allow you to go through it. And then he's going to be with you and sitting with you and looking back in the past like, yeah, that was not a good decision. I'm glad we learned from that. Because you go to God and say, God, see, what happened was, and God's like, if you just came to me, we could have avoided this, but I'm allowed you to go through this because you need to learn. I look at my parents. I told my parents, I sent my mother this video the other day, and it says, I got trust issues. It started with my mother telling me, come here, because I'm not going to beat you. But sometimes you got the parent that lets them go, and it's like, somebody come look at this. And you got the kid walking there like, oh, they're about to wreck themselves, but you got to let them go through it. It's going to hurt. You got to get the Band-Aids ready. You get the peroxide and get that stuff that burns just a little, just to add on to that. This is what you get. And you see them climbing. I'm like, that's going to really hurt. And you told them 10 times to stop doing it. And the kid is still climbing, and here it goes. Like, and in a split second, as a parent, you're ready to go and dive. But as the other side of the parenting is like, should I let him fall? Because you got to learn somehow, and he's not learning through me telling him. So sometimes an experience is the best lesson to land you at a place for wisdom. It's not God's desire for you to go through trials and tribulations, but he knows your nature. I'll say it again, it's not God's desire for you to go through trials and tribulations, but because he knows your nature as a human being, he knows you're going to go through trials and tribulations, and he's going to take that experience and says, let's learn from it. And you start developing wisdom. Often people get mad, like, oh, why is God allowing me to go through this? Because you haven't learned the first time you went through it. So number three, through experiences. And I love it in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 11 says, for the moment all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. I'll read that again. It says, for the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. See, mistakes and hardship can refine us if we learn from them. Number four, through wise counsel. Through wise counsel. And I love this, and the reason why I love the wise counsel, because sometimes we get to a place as individuals, humans, where we no longer are seeking God because we feel like God hasn't heard us, and God will just anoint somebody to come share a word in season specifically for you because you might have turned your ear from God because you got upset at the speed at which he was answering. And sometimes there are individuals who you know are hearing from God, and they come into your life and they're there to help give you wise counsel so you can learn from it. Because a hard head, don't look at anybody in here. See, God places wise people in our lives to help us and guide us through situations and circumstances. Situations that because remember, everybody is going in a storm or or coming out of a storm. And most of the storms that we deal with are from decisions from either somebody else or a decision from yourself. And often we find ourselves in certain storms and we need help getting out of it because we never experienced this type of storm before. And that's why I love having mentors. Mentors are so essential as we live this life. Because what life be lifing. This adult life is something different. I tend to be that person that sometimes I blame my parents for certain things. Like I have a weight issue because of my parents. I blame my parents. They say, well, Pastor Jamaal, how you going to blame Dr. Bernard, the man of God, and how you going to, Dr. Karen Bernard? Because when I was young and we made our plate, what did my mother tell me? Boy, you better finish all that food on that plate. There's kids in Africa starving. Come on, you have one of those. My mother, my dad wouldn't say anything, he'd just give me that look. And so I created a condition of always finishing the food on my plate. Where mentally, I had a hard time turning my plate down. Because I felt that I had to, because I always felt my mother's eyes watching me and hearing her voice, boy. To the point where my brother, is he here? Sean, can I tell the story? The string beans. So we had to finish everything, and not everything that was made was tasty. Like to this day, I still have an issue with okra. Fried okra is different than just cooked okra. It reminds me of slugs. Like how do people eat that? No offense, I'm just saying. It's like a slug that tried to be a something else, and it's on my plate, and I'm like, this thing should be moving right now. And we had to eat it. Like, this is not fair. So Sean didn't like string beans. But our parents would sit there and make us eat this stuff. So what Sean did, which was genius, I'm like, yo, why didn't I think of this? He put the string beans in his pocket. I'm like, genius. I'm like, that's smart. Put the string beans in. The only thing Sean didn't do was throw them out later. So my mother's washing clothes and she's looking and she's taking out and she's seeing string beans coming out of his pocket. And my mother's like, ooh, I'm telling on him. But mentally, it caused me to start thinking in a way that I had to finish my food. And I actually had to go, talking to a therapist, and the therapist took me through a process and say, no, look, Pastor Jamaal, he didn't say Pastor Jamaal, he just gonna know me as Jamaal. You have to break that. But it was through that wise counsel that I have arrived at a place where now I'm able to just say, no, it's okay. I'm a grown man. I spent my money for this food I'm wasting. Mommy and daddy can't yell at me anymore. But it's through wise counseling that becomes the pivoting point in your life that gets you from point A to point B, because you have some things that you were dealing with that just wouldn't let you, that you couldn't let go. And it's through wise counseling that you're able to find processes that get you to a place where you can start letting go of the things that are holding you back, start breaking some of these chains that are stifling your growth as an individual, and you start wondering, why am I where I am? Because there's some trauma in your life that you haven't dealt with, that is holding you back. And every time you get counsel, a chain breaks. And every time you deal with another element of trauma, another chain breaks. And then as you start being able to go from walking to running your race that God has called you to run.
Thank you for listening to Senior Pastor Jamaal Bernard of Christian Cultural Center. Download the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and visit cccinfo.church for more. We'd love to see you in person. Join us Sundays at 10 a.m. at our Brooklyn or Long Island campuses.